The 20-Minute Call is brought to you by SSK Industries, home of Cyprus, USA. Welcome to the 20-Minute Call, the podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, you'll enjoy the 20-Minute Call, hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today is Doug Barron, a second-generation skydiver and one of the top four-way formation skydiving competitors in the world and major big-way load organizer. If you are not familiar with Doug's full story, I recommend going back and listening to episode 19 from December 2023 because it gives a great context for who he is, how he got here, and what drives him. As a recap, Doug first made major waves in the sport as a student attending Virginia Tech. In 2009, his collegiate four-way team upset the U.S. Air Force Academy to win the U.S. Collegiate National Championships. That same year, they also won the U.S. National Championships in the intermediate division, beating 32 other teams, many of them made up of experienced competitors well beyond their college years. Just a year later in 2010, Doug and his teammates came back and won the U.S. Nationals again, this time in the advanced division. Fast forward from 2010 now to 2019, and Doug and his teammates on Team Skydive Chicago Rhythm XP delivered one of the most memorable finishes in recent Nationals history, upsetting the reigning champions Arizona Airspeed by a single point in an 11th round jump-off. You can hear all about that again in episode 19. Since our last interview, Doug has also taken on a massive leadership role in the sport as lead organizer of the All-American Bigways, which hosted the 250-way world record attempts hosted at Skydive Chicago in the summer of 2025, which is exactly where we are headed in today's conversation. So it is my pleasure to welcome back my friend, Doug Barron, to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Welcome, Doug.
Thanks, James. Thank you for having me. Just a slight correction. The 250-way is a state record attempt from Roger Nelson's previous 246-way, which was a world record at the time. The current world record for formation belly is 400, set in Thailand in 2006.
Stand corrected. Never like to start a podcast out with incorrect information. Not even going to edit that out. We're going to roll. But Doug, let's dive right into the record attempts. Tell me, when did you come up with the idea? Because I've only ever known you as the four-way, sometimes eight-way guy. So what was the ideation for this?
Sure. It did come in 2017. It was at the sequential world record attempt 2.219, 3.217 record. At that event, I started to look at the demographic of the participants and realized that we were seeing less and less people that had a lot of years left in their skydiving career without offending anybody. There wasn't a lot of young people in there, jump number wise or age. I've always had a passion for big waves. It's kind of been my secondary to competition. I had a vision for what I wanted to do, but at that event in 2017, I set a goal for myself that I wanted to organize a 200-way, and that we needed to start to change the course of big waves within the sport, or they would die. Because there is something, they may not die, but they would be less and less frequent. There is something about stepping off of an aircraft and seeing... So for the 250, seeing 10 other aircraft go by you in formation, that is, it's indescribable, really. It is the coolest thing ever. And on that vein, I always kind of say this statement that Dan BC had made. He said, if you were to tell a non-skydiver that, a 100-way, for example, we're going to take 100 people in 5 different aircraft, we're going to climb to 18,000 feet above ground level. All of the aircraft are going to leave at the same time or on a specific timeline based on nonverbal communication. Everybody's going to fly to a specific slot in the formation, take grips, build a formation, then track away and deploy a parachute and land safely. And all of that in free fall is going to happen in about a minute, maybe 70 seconds. Most people would say that's impossible. And so to be able to create events and see that stuff come together is incredibly rewarding.
I got the goosebumps.
I know. It's pretty cool, man.
Very cool. So when you and I met last year, we did a fireside chat at the PIA symposium. And during that chat, you were telling me about the logistics that went on behind the scenes for this record attempt. And I was blown away. I think I was I'm fascinated by Big Way and what goes into it, but what goes in behind it just, again, blew me away. So I'd love for you to take us into sort of step by step into the logistics, starting with the administration. Like, you're going to need a lot of jumpers. You know, who is good enough, qualified enough? Where do you even begin? How many years out prior to this? The event was in 2025. So how many years prior? Just walk us through sort of from ideation to, okay, where do we begin now?
Okay. This is going to be a bit of a conversation, but I'm very excited to share this all. So upon getting the goal or setting the goal of saying that I wanted to organize a 200 way, currently in the sport, the two most challenging things to make an event like that happen are, one, the participants, and then two, the aircraft. There is only one drop zone in the world I'm aware of that could actually do a 200 way without bringing in any aircraft, and that's it, Skydive, Arizona. But when I set the goal of breaking Roger's record, so understanding that those two constraints, we'll go with the aircraft first. A huge supporter and a great friend of mine, Rook Nelson, is also pushing the sport with big ways. His goal is to break the vertical world record again and create a 200 way. So I thought, well, there's my aircraft. Like, he's already bringing in additional aircraft and will have lift capacity for 200. So I was like, okay. I initially approached him with this idea. I was like, why don't we run the events at the same time? Because then you're splitting the financial burden of bringing in additional aircraft over two events instead of just one. So the first thing that we did was we ran an event in 2022 when he did a world record attempt then. We ran the 100 way club. He needed 9 aircraft, I believe, and then I only used 6. We learned so much at that event. To go into some more constraints. On financial side, aircraft are usually billed by hourly cost. So if we can minimize the climb times, so that means that we are flying the aircraft with as little fuel as possible. Obviously, they have a reserve and they have enough for a go-around and all of that, but we're not like filling an Otter with enough fuel for 3 or 4 loads. It's going to be our load. So that meant that the 200 way vertical would go, and then they would fuel aircraft, and then my 100 way club would go. We learned at that event, it was taking us upwards of 30 minutes from when I would depart in the first lead sky van, and we would sit on the runway with the aircraft running for 25 minutes while we're waiting for the other aircraft to fuel and land. So that was like the first big point. So what we did to kind of continue on that topic, we learned from that. Quick side note, I believe that there's probably only one DZO and drop zone that is, we'll say, supportive and crazy enough to take on something like this, because any other facility, they're like, man, that's a huge pain to have 2 big events happening literally at the same time, sharing the aircraft. So a huge shout out to Skydive Chicago, Rook Nelson, Anthony Evil, Donovan Bartlett, everybody, Tracy, all the heads of all the departments there, for when they saw this projection or this idea that we had, they took it on as an opportunity to do something great and not as a burden. And that's where all these great ideas came from. That's what I fully believe, that their attitude in this is a huge reason why is so successful. So back to the fueling thing. We were realizing that we in Chicago at that point, I believe there's only 2 fuel stations. So it was only two airplanes at a time that could fuel. From the information that we learned from 2022, they now had built 7 mobile fuel stations. So essentially what Donovan had done, who's the director of maintenance and Eagle Air Transport and at Skydive Chicago, he looked at like what they use to fuel aircraft in remote settings, like in the desert or the jungle or something like that. So there are certified fuel cubes, and then he put pumps on all of them. So when all the airplanes would land from one of the 200 ways, then they would go and park, except for the Casas, they hot fueled. All of the otters would go park. No, I'm sorry. All of the otters would stay running. Yep. And they hot fueled, and they had 7 different fuel cubes, fuel stations set up, plus the 2 that could fuel at the fueling station that's on the tarmac in Chicago. So we could fuel all of those aircraft while they were running. And we were able to turn 9 aircraft. I was using 11. He was using 9. So when he would land from, when I say he, Rook Nelson, when the vertical record would land, their aircraft would pull up into their loading areas. They would all fuel right there. There were enough A&Ps, or also a huge shout out to Martin Aviation, because he donated like 5 of his A&Ps to be on site to help fuel, load, and repair any issues that happened with the aircraft, because we all know that there's issues that happen with aircraft at events like this. So we were able to land, fuel, and take off with 9 aircraft, 11 total, because the 2 on the ground were mine already ready to go, in 12 to 15 minutes, which is a task. I mean, just sometimes trying to load one aircraft with tandems and skydivers and stuff can take where it's like 5 or 6 minutes. But we were turning 9 aircraft in 10 or 12 to 15 minutes, which is remarkable. Like the efficiency setup. So more onto the efficiency side, when I say the otters would pull up and park, we had specific loading areas for each of the otters. And they were all strategically placed based on where they were in formation, in the aircraft formation and at altitude, which is where they would take off from. So one day during the week in the summer earlier before the event, on a slower day, Dave Schwartz taxied the otter through the north grass behind the maintenance hangar and figured out which was the most efficient place each aircraft needed to park. Not only where they needed to park, when they needed to pull in, which aircraft needed to pull in succession so that they could go to their parking spot. They had actually used spray paint and marked off all the parking areas and essentially a taxi line for the otters to follow. Because when we were prepping the event, we would walk into the maintenance hangar, prep the event, or walk the skydive there. Then all of the tailgates were loading on the ramp, and all of the otters were loading in the grass on the north side of the hangar. So even all of that. So that way, when they would turn to pull back out, they were all in succession, already ready to go. Then all the tailgates would take off first. So the otters would go, and they would either stage in, depending on which direction takeoff was, because there was a specific, if we took off to the north, this is the order that the aircraft had to take off in.
And not to interrupt, we are not talking now about the 2002 event or 22 event. We're in 25 now, right?
Yeah, sorry. So we learned a bunch of stuff, like the fueling thing, the logistics of where the aircraft needed to get parked. All of that stuff was learned in 2022. And when I didn't want to overwhelm it first, so in 2022, we just did 100 ways, so only used half the aircraft, and then we would have less aircraft to have to turn. So this has been a project of 5 years of vision of how can we make this happen in the future? And it needed to be in Chicago or in Illinois, because that's where the state record is. That's 246 that I want to go break, because I want all the records in my name in Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by SSK Industries, home of Cypress USA. Since its release in 1991, the Cybernetic Parachute Release System, or Cypress, has been on more than 192 million skydives and has never failed to activate when called upon in the most critical moments. Engineered and built with German precision, the device has saved over 5,400 lives. Why choose anything else when your life might just depend on it? Cypress.
So, back to the otters and everything. So they had, if we're taking off to the north, there was a specific taxi order in which the aircraft needed to move out and who needed to take off. And the otters would either be parked in one of the grass runways that they have in Skydive Chicago, And during the event, this is a kind of a funny anecdote, that the corn is pretty tall at that point in the year that's all surrounding Skydive Chicago. And to see 6 otters and all you could see were like the top of the tail, people started calling them corn sharks. And I'm like, oh, get ready for the corn sharks. Here they come. And because all you could see them, because they were all tucked in the grass runway, which is surrounded by corn, which is like 6 feet tall at that point. So if you're a spectator, you would just see the tops of all the tails of the otters moving through, and they looked like sharks moving through the water. So they called them corn sharks. It was pretty funny. So all the tailgates would take off. And then there was a flag guy, because the corn is so tall, and the first lead otter pilot in there couldn't see when to go. So then there's a guy that was holding a big wind blade, and when the last tailgate would take off, then he would drop that, and then the otters would pull out and start taking off. So to even launching 11 aircraft for me, at first I was very worried. I was like, man, if it's 45 seconds between aircraft taking off, that's 10 minutes ish, almost, from when the time my Sherpa takes off until the last otter is taking off. But we were even able to launch 11 aircraft in like, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 4 minutes or something like that. Just because, based on the efficiency of all of this. And I mean, another huge shout out to Dave Schwartz for organizing this. Dave is just an incredible person, incredible pilot. And when he was tasked with taking on, like, I guess we called him the director of aviation and all the pilots. So he managed everybody. And I mean, there was probably 50 or 60,000 hours of flight time in that crew of, because Casas are 2 pilots. So I don't know, there was like 18 pilots there or something like that, 15 pilots. And to see them all work together with Dave running lead there, like he was even walking the formation with them. And like I said, so if we took off to the north, there was a different flight path that they would take. If we took off to the south, there was a different flight path that we would take. And this was all engineered between Dave and Rook. Everything that we could control in the event, I believe, ran incredibly successful. Like I said, the fact that we could turn 9 airplanes in 12 minutes, the fact that I could take off 11 airplanes in like 3.5 minutes, and then to have Anthony Evil on the ground, to have that trust in that individual, like, it, you know, we dealt with weather all the time. So that's why we're going to change our dates next time, Rook. We had a bit of a battle there of when we should do the event, and we did it in August, obviously, and then the week that I suggested in September. This is again a tangential anecdote. I woke up to a text every morning of a picture of the crystal blue sky, and he's like, "It'd be a good day to do 200 weights," and I was like, "Yes, it would." So we're gonna do it in September again, and we'll announce that later on. The team in which we built to make all of this happen is really what the centerpiece of it was. To have the people that we trust. Everybody trusted in each other, and I believe everybody did their best, not just for themselves, but for the benefit of the team, because of the belief in what we were trying to do. This has never happened before, ever. In the world of skydiving, there has never been 200 ways in different disciplines happening at the same time. There's been 200 ways attempt, obviously on just vertical or just on your belly, but never at the same time, literally the same days.
We're in it right now in terms of the aircraft and how they were coordinated. But of course, there's the people. And you started at the top saying, you know, there was a lot of advanced skydivers really into big wave, but maybe a younger generation hadn't really been as involved. It wasn't quite as active. You know, back in my early Skydive Carolina days, there was this thing called Carolina Flock and all these guys, and, you know, eventually that disbanded. So how are you able to identify the right people for this attempt? And my brain is also thinking about the admin. Like, how are you communicating with all these people as well? So just give us some insight there.
All American Big Waves has been running events for, I don't know, years at this point. And one thing that we knew and we started to see was just the time that it takes for communication and event management. And actually, James, I don't remember, I'm sure you remember this, it was when I came and talked to you one time about like building a website, and I described all of the things that I wanted to do on this website. And then you and I kind of talked, and we got put into contact with an individual to help us build a tool for registration to manage, just like you said, all of the admin, the communication, vetting people, instead of copy and paste emails and sending this and sending that and sending this. I mean, for a 250 way, we knew that it would be hours, days really, of just trying to send communication. So in 2023, we started working with Sheldon Sadler on creating SKYCRU. And he had already had an app built, but we kind of changed the direction of the tool. What we wanted to do was we used the Wisconsin state record in 2024 as kind of a test. We had a few test events along the way, but then we used the Wisconsin state record run by Gorka Amian at Skydive Midwest to kind of really test the tool and figure out what are the bugs that we needed to work out. So SKYCRU was a huge help in event management, participant management, communication between the participants. We've now even graduated into like payment features on it. So managing payments, managing registrations, managing the participants. Since it was a state record, all the USPA numbers for record type event, all of the stuff that we knew took a long time in just admin, we tried to build into this tool. And Sheldon's been fantastic, man. Anytime we had an issue, he would be like, okay, I'm pushing a new update next week. Let me see if I can fix these problems. And what we thought was, just in general, like we are outgrowing Google Forms. That's what we previously used. And why aren't we trying to create a tool? Like it's 20, at this point, it was 2023 or 2024. Like, why don't we have a tool where people can log in on the participant side? It'll save all the standard questions that we ask them. So I don't have to have Joe Nicholson copy and pasting 600 events that he's done, with me. Love you, Joe, but you always messed up my Google Sheet formatting because you had so many things you would list. So on the participant side as well, ease of registering for events. Like all the standard questions are already in your form. It auto-populates everything. You can look and now see in a calendar or the team pages where all of the events are, what all the events are. You just click. Very easy to do. And I know that there are some bugs, so we're working out, but this is way better than like clicking on a Google form, entering your same information. I mean, yeah, Google has autofill now, but also you can start tracking your events. And as a organization, we can see all of your past events. We can see what you've applied for, what you've, where you've been accepted. And then we're even going to start adding scorecards into things and let that be customer facing as well, so that they can see where they can improve upon, so people can stay motivated and understand what they can do better. So SKYCRU has been just a huge tool, huge, very, very helpful for us. Like I was just telling you earlier, I just created and went live with like 6 different events in about 90 minutes, when previously it would take me days to do that much stuff. So thank you, Sheldon. Huge shout out there. Super helpful.
Super cool. I mean, it just sounds like everything has to be on a higher level for this level of event I was going to ask you, but you already covered it with, where do you find pilots that have the level of experience to be flying in formation with a number of aircraft that really has not been seen before, I guess since Roger Nelson? There's unlikely the same pilots from that era flying. Is there really?
There's a few of them that were still in there. We were also the largest aircraft formation since the 300 way formation that happened in Eloy, and I don't remember the date. 2000, early 2000s. We were 11 aircraft. There had been a few 10 aircraft formations, but we were at 11, and we were the largest aircraft formation since then. So exactly, even these pilots, they haven't seen that sight picture. And the pilots are flying double duty. Like, we're only doing hour jumps. They're flying double duty, and the aircraft formations are different. Like the vertical, they are a 7 ship with 2 aircraft tucked in between. So they had an Otter and a Skyvan on the number 3 trail, but inside the echelon. So these pilots, they don't even get the same rep over and over. So huge shout out to them. And I mean, that's where you have a team that you trust. Like we trust Dave and Rook to staff the pilots. They knew who they were trying to get, and the pilots did a phenomenal job. I was so excited to see so many people. And actually, to tie it back into Wisconsin. So in Wisconsin, we used the Sherpa as a lead, and that created a lot of logistical challenges there. When we were there, we met the Sherpa captain, Casey, who is Andre's brother, who owned Win Aviation. When I contacted Win to get the Sherpa to fly lead for me, I was very adamant that I wanted Casey to fly lead, because in the aircraft, there's 4 different aircraft. We used a Sherpa, a Casa, 2 Skyvans, and 6 Otters, or 2 Casas, 2 Skyvans, and 6 Otters. So there's 4 different aircraft profiles, 4 different climb profiles. The Sherpa wants to climb at a little bit faster speed. So again, Casey, who flew the Sherpa in Wisconsin in a 5 aircraft formation, knew how to fly the aircraft so it better suited all the trails. So that's why I was like, I want Casey as my captain in the Sherpa. He knows what needs to happen with that aircraft so that everybody else can fly as comfortable as possible. So it is a huge team endeavor, and we tried to cover everything that we could. And again, it's building the team that you trust in. And that's what I did, and we did, and it was amazing.
The 20-minute call is supported by Freefall Films, the new AI video editing software that's taking the drop zone industry by storm. Savvy DZOs are switching to Freefall Films because it's easy to use and built with features to help you, the hardworking DZO, make more money. The best thing about Freefall Films is it's driven by passionate people who love skydiving and seeing their customers thrive. Get a free demo and mention the 20-minute call to receive a credit of $200. Freefall Films, simpler, more powerful, more profitable. Doug, I'm really curious about the emotional side of, there's so many years of build up, identifying the right teams. People are going to camps to try and qualify to get the invite for this event. All the logistics, everything that goes on behind the scenes, all the admin, all the problems, as you said, that you can control. But then there's also your desire, your desire of wishing to create this state record and having to be the leader in front of, 250, 60 people. And then the weather's crap and there's other logistics occurring. How do you manage your own level of disappointment when things aren't really going as planned, and really sort of managing yourself in order to help manage everybody else and keep the energy up? And talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay. This is a challenging question, honestly. Being a leader in that environment, you have to disconnect yourself from your own emotions, your personal emotions at times. There is a reason why we have a captain's room that no one else is allowed in except for leadership and videographers. When the doors are closed, leave the doors closed. Honestly, I need those moments to decompress. Because when you're in front of the group, your job is to promote positivity and continue to move forward. I landed in the aircraft just as many times as I took off, if not more, at that event. And it was all things that I couldn't control. Weather, and we made the best weather calls we could. We literally took Rook's King Air. It was myself and Matt and Rook and John DeVore, I think, or somebody else. And we flew all the way to the Wisconsin border, flew all the way out. We made a big square looking for a hole. It was like an hour of flight time that we were in, looking for a hole of where we could start, when we could start predicting that stuff. That's how involved all of the leadership was. That's how much Rook wanted this as well. When I say that we had a team that there will never ever or hopefully we can replicate the same team again, but that believed in our mission. That's what I mean. Sorry. And I know that I'm kind of going off topic from your question. To kind of give an example of what happened. So there was the most challenging time at that event for me, and I've told this story before, so I don't mind telling it now. It was the last jump of the day on, I don't remember what day, honestly, Thursday maybe. And we had to do a go around for clouds. So that in itself is a go around with 11 aircraft takes 25 minutes. I'll be honest, in the back of my head, I'm thinking financially, I'm like, I'm paying hourly for all these airplanes. This is we'll say $8,000 or $9,000 go around that I'm going to have to pay for. And we don't really budget go arounds. I mean, we kind of do, but anyways. And then on jump run for the second pass, I hear that I believe it was the 30 plane ran out of O2 and is in descent quickly because they're out of O2. I'm like, okay, well, abort, we're landing again. And in the aircraft, all I heard was we had an oxygen problem. One of the airplanes is out of O2. We needed to land. Like, they are already out. The pilot he's like, we have to land. I do. And if you can see the video, you can see him just like roll out. Somebody has video of it from inside the aircraft. Obviously, no one was outside. And I landed, and I remember walking directly over to the air boss station to Anthony Ebel, and I let my frustrations out. Because I trusted him, and I knew, and no one else was around because I needed to do this in private. I immediately apologized to him, and I said, I'm sorry for letting myself unravel a little bit. And he's like, nope, that's what I'm here for. You need to do it here and not in front of everybody else. So what we had found out is that a connection in the O2 line in that aircraft was somehow inadvertently bumped, and no one could see it. But essentially, it just drained the whole bottle of oxygen. And usually we can get to 19,000 feet. We were getting like three-ish loads to 19,000. And that was a fresh bottle put in before that load. And we went through the whole thing with the go-around in less than one jump, essentially. You learn to compartmentalize. I let it out. I chatted with Anthony. We created a solution to the problem. We figured out, first we identified the problem, created a solution to the problem, and then you have to figure out a way to relay that to the participants where they still have trust in what you're doing as a leader. So my methodology or my theory is I'm very straightforward. I'm direct, and I let people know. I don't try to hide things. I'm like, yes, we had an oxygen problem. It was outside of our control. We didn't realize this was happening, but guess what? I have trust in my A&P department, and they have a solution. They have fixed the problem, but that's part of it. To send 11 aircraft to 19,000 feet with 262 people, we tried to do everything we can to foresee every issue that may be there, but there are things that happen. Unfortunately, I just kept on having things happen to me. The really funny one was the vertical had landed from a jump. We turned them, and there was a big weather system off to the west. And then again, Casey, the Sherpa captain, because I'm in the lead Sherpa, he calls me up and he's like, there's a tornado. And I was like, what? Did I hear you correctly? I was like, there's a tornado? And he's like, yeah, there's a tornado. Actually, I'm talking to the co-pilot. And I was like, is this like an aviation term? Because you said ATC wants us to land. I was like, are there so many aircraft on the radar that it looks like a tornado? And he's like, no, there is an actual tornado that touched down near Chicago Center. They evacuated the building. There are not enough air traffic controllers to manage the aircraft in the air. We have to land. And then I land, and I just started laughing at that point. I was like, this isn't even on my bingo card of stuff that could go wrong. And apparently it was such a rush and a high stress environment that Rook is debriefing the 200 way, the vertical, and they called him on his cell phone and they were like, hey, get your airplanes out of the air. There is literally a tornado on the ground. We had to evacuate Chicago Center. We don't have enough ATC. We don't have enough air traffic controllers to manage the aircraft that we have. And ATC was so good to us because to get clearance to 19,000 feet AGL, we are now in Class B space. So that's in the approach to Midway in O'Hare for Chicago. And they were like, we'll clear you guys out. You're good. Don't worry about us. Just give us, obviously, all of the prior calls and everything, and don't worry about it. But like the one time they needed it, they were like, you got to get on the ground. And, again, outside of our control.
Let's talk about the financials of this because,
oh boy,
we don't need to go into to too great a detail, but I don't think many fun jumpers understand when we talk about the hourly, like many airplanes for your standard DZ usually are charging between $650 to $900 an hour. I imagine it's even higher for CASAs and Sherpas. You said, with a go around that could be, 9-10 grand. How do you budget for this? Because it would seem to me that when things go wrong, it starts getting very expensive. You're on the hook as the lead guy. And, last time I checked, you weren't working for
I'm a professional skydiver.
You're a professional skydiver. Yeah, I was trying to put that in right context. So I think for most, Doug, it would make me want to lose my appetite to even want to do this again. So, and I always remember being a drop zone manager where, it's on the line, and me wearing the hat of, it's my responsibility to make sure that all of these tandem students who we are making decisions for get back to the ground safely. But then there's also the fact that all of these instructors with a varied amount of experience, some being more comfortable than others, are making their living by jumping. And me wanting to make sure that I am putting safety first ahead of profit, going, no matter what, I'm going to do the right thing, that if we need to land and I'm going to be weathered out for the day and lose tremendous amounts of revenue, that money piece can't come into mind. But we're talking major money here. I mean, 9, 10, 11 airplanes, on a typical day to drop zone, you're running one aircraft. And yes, there is a domino effect if you're weathered out. Can you just give us a little bit more insight? Like, how are you sleeping at night? Maybe that's a good part. Yeah, not.
Well, so on that, James, I want to give you some credit because like a lot of the core beliefs that I have in running events kind of came from me watching you run Skydive Carolina when I was growing up. Safety is always my top priority. I have limits. I've set limits based on my experience of like winds and weather and all that stuff. In my opinion, yes, in a record scenario, you're going to push the limits a little bit more, but there's still limits. And it is not worth having someone get hurt or unfortunately the worst, like perish at an event when you're blinded by the decision to try to go after a record and you put somebody into a situation where you questioned that. I'm sorry, and maybe other organizers won't agree with me, and that's totally fine. That's their prerogative. But I mean, I've had people get hurt at my events, like break an ankle, someone broke their back once, and to have that responsibility, have that ownership on yourself is just, it's awful. Cause you're like, man, did I make that call? Like, were their winds really that bad that we shouldn't have been jumping? And maybe I stand down too much, but I would rather stand down and have everybody be safe than make an attempt, not get a record, and somebody gets hurt. Finances. So for the dueling 200s, 200, 250, we had to bring in 6 additional aircraft, right? Yeah, because Skydive Chicago had 2 Skyvans and 3 Otters. So I ferried in the Sherpa. I used that aircraft solely for the 250. We shared the CASAs. We ferried them in from Skydive Paraclete XP. So huge shout out to the DZOs. They also sent their Otter as well. So Tim and John for being huge supporters of that. And then we brought in the Midwest Otter. So that is 5. And then we brought in the Air Ohio Otter as well, because we were originally going to bring in Delta Hotel, but we all know what happened there. So you got to think the closest ferry is Midwest, and they're less than an hour. And just like you were saying, these aircraft, when they go on lease, and I'm not trying to get too much into the aircraft side of things, but it's an hourly rate that you're paying. And most of it is dry, which means no fuel. Anyways, some of them are dry, some are wet, most of them are dry. The shortest ferry is Midwest, and that's about an hour one way. For Paraclete, we're bringing in 3 aircraft, and it's about, I think it was maybe a 5-hour or less flight. So that's, just for 5 for number's sakes, that's 15 hours one way for 3 airplanes. And the airplanes aren't free on a ferry. So that's 30 hours of ferry just for the 3 airplanes coming from XP.
And I think many fun jumpers don't often even know that there's a ferry fee involved. I'll say this, and I'm going to say this for my DZOs and DZMs out there who feel frustrated. One of the hardest challenges of running a drop zone is a lot of people think that you're an idiot when you're running it, and they don't have all the information of really what things are costing and why you make those decisions. And I'll say that for any of the fun jumpers listening to this recording, when a DZO lets an aircraft fly light, particularly a turbine aircraft flying light, usually to either keep that plane turning so that you don't have to wait a super long time, or it's the last load of the day and you just want to feel good, it's real money. It's real money.
It is real money. Let me tell you, it is real money, and there is a lot of it. I burned, for my event, 15,000 gallons of jet fuel for 11 aircraft. In 6 days. Just me. Average jet fuel price. I think you guys, it varies through the country and how much you're buying. And for tailgate aircraft, again, to all the fun jumpers out there, and you just got your A license, just got your B license, you seen it, you want to jump a tailgate aircraft, they are almost twice as much to operate hourly as everything else. The DZOs that let you jump their tailgate aircraft do it because they love you. They have those aircraft to fly military contracts because that's where they're making the money. And maybe not, and I'm sorry for any DZO that's out there and says that's not my belief and all that, but there is a potential to make easier, better money in other avenues. And the reason they are letting you jump their aircraft with tailgates is because they love you and they love the sport. If they didn't and they were purely business minded, we wouldn't be jumping tailgates. They are not that efficient to run. Skyvans are getting harder and harder to come by. The engines are more and more expensive. Without me getting into a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to be very thread the line of what I can say and what I can't say and stuff. Not that I'm not allowed to say things, but it frustrates the heck out of me when the fun jumpers complain about shit and they don't understand. And like I said, I am deep into the finances now after running this event and not understanding how expensive things are. So yes, you might balk at things, but a bottle of oxygen costs $58 or something like that. And that varies throughout the country. What about the O2 system that they had to build to put it in the aircraft? Who's paying for that? Who paid for that at some point? All the cannulas, all the leaders that are in the aircraft, all the little fittings and all that stuff. I made all of the leaders that went into all the aircraft. So, when you tie it in a knot and you just ruined one of my leaders because you thought it's going to make your O2 flow better, which it won't. Now I have to replace that myself, me. This is the guy right here that has to do that.
Something that I'm reminded of that you just said with fuel is, in order to get a lower fuel price if you're a DZO, you normally would buy a lot of fuel at the beginning of the month because you're getting one delivery versus weekly deliveries. In order to get that lower rate, when that fuel is delivered, you're on net 30-day terms to pay for it. Boy, things get real tight as a DZO when you go 2-3 weeks of bad weather, particularly on the weekend, where you're not burning that fuel and you're not jumping to make that revenue. And I'm sure that there's many DZOs and DZMs that are happy that we're actually saying this out loud, because these are the things that, you don't want to talk about at the drop zone because everyone's just there to have the time of their lives. This is just about having fun. But
exactly.
If you ever see your DZO kind of walking around sort of serious faced, it's always interesting the contrast, because DZOs will walk around the DZ and they look very serious and stern. And everyone's like, what's the deal with that guy? And while everyone is literally having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
And, that DZO is often thinking about what the fuel,
15,000 fuel bill that he or she are on the hook for in the next 3 days. And they've only done 30 loads that whole month.
I want to watch our time, Doug. I want to move. Last question about this is I was watching the live feed and I enjoyed it tremendously. And on the last day after the last jump, didn't get the record. You were quite emotional. I honestly love seeing it because I know that you are all heart. You sincerely care. And I think we all respect it very much. But I'm curious, what was your emotion when at that moment?
Yeah, so that was kind of a roller coaster for me, but I learned a lot. I did learn a lot. It was, I'm trying to think of the best adjective to describe this. I don't want to say like crushing or anything like that, but really I just felt, initially I felt like I let everybody down. Because obviously I have a goal and I wanted to do it. And I had literally been dreaming about what it's going to look like to step off the tailgate with my hand-selected 6 people. And quick tangent there, I called somebody 3 days before the event because I wanted him in the base with me. So Ryan Scarlett, if you're out there, I love you, man. You are amazing. I had my 5 and I called him and I was like, dude, I need you here. I want you in my 6-way. So I dreamed about what it was going to look like to step off the tailgate and see 10 airplanes go past me. And I brain locked the first jump. I did. We were supposed to like go to a no contact star and pick up the fall rate. I just started grabbing people's hands as I was looking around because it was so awesome. Like these people trusted in me to accomplish a goal, and it didn't happen. And I wanted this so bad. Years were put into that. And yeah, I mean, it just feels like I just kept failing. And it was really hard to deal with. And honestly, kind of in the captain's debrief before the last jump debrief, I was like, you know what? Yeah, we didn't get it now, but how many times did Roger have to try? How many times has Rook tried and he still hasn't gotten 200? Yeah, he got a new world record this time, but all it means is that we didn't fail at achieving the goal. We just prolonged the timeline of when we are going to succeed at it. And that's what I said in the debrief. I was like, it's not goal failed. It's just goal prolonged. We're going to do it again. And I will do it again. And I will get that goal. Unfortunately, it's kind of maybe a bad thing for me is I'm so stubborn that I'm just going to keep trying and keep doing it and keep doing it, which is why I'm still doing 4-way. Like why I had the great opportunity to take a slot on XP8 this year and go after a world championship in 8-way. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to achieve my goal. It may not, the timeline may change, and that's fine, but I'm going to get it.
Is it safe to say the registration might be a little bit higher on the next one?
I guarantee you registration will be a little bit higher, and it will not be a $67 jump ticket. It's probably going to be more like $75. And on that vein, I'm going to say confirmed because I talked to Rook yesterday about it. We are confirming that September of 2028, we will be doing dueling 200s again. He wants 200 and I want 250. So actually I was on the phone with Dan BC earlier today, and we are already starting to develop our plan for the future of how we can best prepare everybody for this next set. Bigger things are coming. I'm not done. I'm just getting started.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Burble. Rook Nelson's name has come up a lot, and I was at the Hall of Fame event, Skydiving Hall of Fame event this year, and I was in awe, not because you're not deserving, but Rook knows everybody in the sport. I mean, he literally knows everybody. And for those that are unfamiliar with the International Skydiving Museum and Hall of Fame event, when inductees are inducted into the hall, they have someone present them. And of all the people that Rook could ask, he asked you to present him.
Oh boy. I was wondering when you were going to make me cry because you always make me cry. When he asked me that, like kind of funny how this all goes into this story about big ways is he was flying for one of my events in Sebastian, and he walked over and he was like, hey, Heidi and I were talking about people who inspire us, blah, blah, blah. And your name came up. And I was like, oh, well, cool, man. That means a lot. And he's like, will you be my presenter for the Hall of Fame? And I started to cry because I was like so taken aback. And I thought the same stuff. And I was like, dude, literally everyone, all the same stuff that you just said. I was like, I feel undeserving of this. And then he actually gave me a shout out in his acceptance speech too. And I was like trying to hold back the tears there. And so anyways, when I was like, absolutely, I will, man. And he looked at me, he was like, don't cry about it. And that's Rook and I's relationship. I have so much respect for him, and I would not be able to be doing the things that I do. Like I said, when I presented this idea, I was like, let's do 200 ways at the same time. He was like, okay, let's make it happen. So to have somebody that is, I guess, equal mindset like that, and always willing to push and try to do things differently, set a different standard for the sport, holding everybody to not just get stuck into the same ways. Like, how can we continue to do things differently and do different stuff that showcases how great skydiving is? Like, again, if I didn't have his support, and support of everybody who has supported me through the years, but I mean, like when I was hurt, Rook would just like see me pushing myself around the drop zone in a wheelchair. He was, was very supportive of me through all of my career. And so a huge thanks and a shout out to him and the whole Nelson family. Just thank you. Like, without the people around me that believe and want to make this stuff happen, I'm just an idiot with crazy ideas. So and again, it's not about me. And I've tried to say this before. If you don't surround yourself with a group of people that you trust and that believe in you and push yourself to be better, you're not going to be like, nothing's going to happen. I tried to stress throughout this conversation, it was about building the team of people that I trusted. I wanted Dave Schwartz to be the director of aviation so much. I knew having Anthony Ewell on the ground, whatever happened, if there was a call from the ground, Anthony's making the call. I trust him. I believe in him. We work together. Like, to be able to say, yeah, man, let's make this happen. How can we do this the best? If we don't have those people around us, again, I'm just some stupid guy with crazy ideas that are equal to some guy walking around the street,
Something about the crazy ones change the world. It's good stuff, Doug.
Try to.
Let's talk about, for a moment, you said, recently you were in Dubai Abu Dhabi for the, I guess it's the Climb Wind Tunnel. And I observed that you were with Craig Girard doing that. And then you also just mentioned, you spoke with Dan BC today. I remember when, and we've talked about this on this podcast before, that I don't think I'll make you repeat what's in your phone when Craig Girard calls you on the caller ID. But now the idols that you looked up at are now your friends and co-organizers with these incredible events. What does it feel like to be a peer, not a fan, a peer to the idols that you have grown up just enjoying watching them do their thing?
I did have that moment in the first Zoom meeting I had for all the captains. So another thing about 250 was, like we said, getting the participants. How can I make that happen? I was like, okay, well, I know my crew core that I want to have in the United States. And I was like, well, I need people all over the world. So having Pedro-san from South America and Brazil, adding Martial from France, Milko from Europe as well, and to open a Zoom call and see Craig, Dan, Doug Forth, Chrissy Frickin, Andrew Happick, Gorka, Pedro-san, it's crazy, Martial, Milko, and they're all looking directly at me to be the leader in this situation. I was like, holy shit. Sorry for my language, but I started talking and then I just stopped for a minute and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. It's me. They're all attentively looking at what I had to say and what my plan was for this to happen. Personally, I was like, a little bit of imposter syndrome. I'll be honest. You're like, dude, these people are my heroes, my idols. Like, I look up to them to tell me what to do. And now they're all looking at me. And I said BC, right? BC was in there as well, obviously. BC was across from me in the base.
I just got goosebumps. That's wild.
It was, again, building a team that I trust in based on their experience, their knowledge, and how we interact, and having the same values of how we coach and how we structure our events was a huge thing. But yeah, a little bit. So in that call, it was a little bit of imposter syndrome in the beginning. And then it was like, all right, like, also, I was obsessed. I am obsessed with this and competitive four-way. I was like, ask my wife. She's like, can you please stop doing this? Or, but I love you, Jamie. She puts up with me. I knew I had the belief in myself because we tried to think of everything, and I had a plan. And if I didn't have a plan, I reached out or I tasked certain individuals. Also, huge shout out to Gorka. Gorka did so much back end behind the war, like, dude. And I publicly, obviously, I always give him a hard time and razz him, but dude, that man, like, from the videos that we've created for the Big Way series, all this stuff, like, he's always, and developing SKYCRU, he was a huge part of that. And I feel like he doesn't get enough credit and accolades. And I love you, Gorka. It'll probably be the only time I ever say that publicly. So, take it with a grain of salt, but he did so much. And then, like, that was the beginning. Sorry, I know I'm going a little bit all over the place, but when I first opened our prep the night before, because I wanted to have the morning or the pre-event prep, not the morning of jumping. I wanted to have it the night before. That was another thing in logistics, because it's about how we can motivate 260 people to believe in the same project and the same goal. And I started with saying, I have built my team of leadership of people that I believe in and I trust. I mean, my best friend's up there, Andrew. Like, man, that man is awesome. And then to have BC there and Gerard and Gorka and Christy Frickin. Like, I brought Frickin in because I can trust her with anything and she gets a task done. And then I've had huge respect for Milko and Martial, and then Pedro-san in Brazil and South America. He did just a phenomenal job of recruitment and everything. So the first thing I wanted to do was say, I believe and I trust in my team because I know that we're all equal-minded and I can rely on them to achieve a task. That's how I wanted to relay it to the participants. Like, I want you to believe and trust in my group as much as I do. So the more that we can get people to buy into our common goal, you will get people to be able to perform above their means.
Love that. We're going to wind this down, but there's a question I've been really wanting to ask you. And mind you, well done. We're at the 57-minute mark of recording, perfect. And you nearly got through without shedding a tear.
Freaking Andrew. Every time.
That guy.
I've
seen your body. I know this sounds a little bit awkward. I've seen your body transform since your injury. Mm-hmm. You're a very fit athlete now.
Try to be.
And so I'm curious, what are your habits? What does a typical day look like for you?
Unfortunately, I'm probably not as habitual as I should be about some stuff. I love candy, and I know that, and sweets. That's a bit of my downfall. So in the past, I have been working with a remote personal trainer. His name is Mitchell Camarino. He is amazing, and unfortunately, I wasn't the greatest client for him in the end, but I need to call him. So Mitch will give you a call. So he had a workout plan for me. It went as far as nutrition, a daily meal plan that I had to abide by. For us to be able to perform at our highest level, like, it is our physical sport and what we need to do, and continue to add cardio into things, just being aware of what I'm eating and how much I'm eating, and also setting realistic goals. Like, when I was heavy into trying to bring my weight down for 4-way, eating the same 150 grams of rice and, 46 grams of protein or 4.5 ounces of ground beef. And it gets a little monotonous for sure, but those are the sacrifices that you kind of have to make. So if and when I ever do retire from 4-way, I might put on a few pounds. But yeah, it's the choices that you are willing to make to how much you want to put into things. And not everybody's going to do that, and that's totally fine. You don't have to. You don't have to maintain my 175 pounds for competition weight like I need to, like that's fine. But I do need to do that because that's my job. That's my goal.
You're in the base of the Big Way, and you're watching everybody pouring out of the airplanes. Everyone is flying to the base. They're flying to you. Tell me what that side picture must look like.
Actually, I was just cleaning out my hard drive and I found a 360 footage from it, and I took a screen grab and sent it to the organizers chat. And I was like, you remember this? So I'll kind of go through the first jump, the first full 11 airplane attempt that we actually stepped off the airplane. In the airplane, red light. So the tailgate already comes open on 2 minutes again, because Casey knows he needs to slow the airplane down. We are on O2. I have visualized my process. I know that when the tailgate comes open, I shake my head to turn on my Bluetooth, brought to you by Hypoxic. I turn on my, then, okay, everybody's up. I know that we need to stand up at a certain point over the ground based on running a north jump run. Tell everybody to stand up. I'm looking around. I see my 2 super floaters, people that I trust, Steve Igliotti and my teammate Chris Webb. I specifically chose them to go there because I wanted the people on the tailgate to be the people I trust most. Elliot Bird right there with me. Okay, I can, because I want to look at all these people and have them look and instill trust. My base chunk, myself, Dan, and I are in the pin. Rafa's to my right. Charlie McGee is across or next to Rafa. Then it's Dan. Then it's Ryan Scarlett. Then it's Tyler Jensen. Those are the people that I trust. All right. Green light comes on. Turn my camera on. Make sure we're recording. 2 deep breaths off oxygen. Walk back to the tailgate. Look back. Give my people a good thumbs up and a smile. Deep breath for the base. All right, here we go. I actually had to change how I give my count because the Sherpa tailgate's a little bit lower. So now we're a shake. Ready, step off the tailgate. I step off the tailgate and I look up in disbelief. I have literally been dreaming of what this sight picture is going to be like. And like I said, our plan was to break the 6-way chunk, go to no contact star, accelerate the fall rate a little bit, and then pick the star back up. Because you don't actually take a star off the tailgate. It's a modified formation. What happened? I'm looking up and looking around, and I start pulling Rafa's hand off of my leg to get into the star. Tyler's presenting his grip to me. I'm just like looking up in disbelief. And I'm like, holy shit, this is so freaking cool. It is the coolest thing ever. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, man. And then I kind of come back to reality and I look back at Dan. He smiles at me and then he says, time to go to work. And I was like, all right, game on. And then to just see that many people coming at you, these are things that are hard to describe because until you experience them, I can be like, oh yeah, it's really cool to see 75 people in front of you and then see 75 more over here and then have 75 over here. So, but even when I still watch the videos first person, it's amazing. Another thing, huge shout out to Alpha Plane, which was the aircraft of some of the most trusted people. My wife was in that aircraft. That was Andrew's aircraft that he was a captain of because I knew that they were the farthest airplane away on the left side that had the hardest approach. They had the hardest sight picture and the hardest approach, and they built every time. Everybody in the airplane on grips every time. Huge shout out Alpha Airplane.
Doug, thank you for taking us on that journey with you. I'm so proud to call you my friend. What a journey it's been and continues to be. And thank you for being who you are. You're all heart, man. We love seeing the emotion, the grit, the high, the low, the all of it, because it's not easy. It's messy.
Yeah.
We see you in the fight. Feels good.
Yeah. I truly have a huge passion for this. And like I said, I have surrounded myself with a team that believes in me. Elliot, oh God, I didn't even talk about Elliot through this whole thing. Elliot is my unsung hero all the time. Like, I'm always like, hey, can you get this done? Hey, can you do that? Hey, can you do this? And he continues to do it. And he's the best. Elliot is the best. He is the best free fall videographer there is in the sport right now. I know there's a lot of really good ones out there. Obviously, Joe Jennings is still really good. OB is fantastic. Andrei Velesov in Russia. But I know Elliot and I know his passion and where he is and the way he ran the videographer team. I love all those other guys so much. Maybe I'm biased because Elliot's so close to me, but Elliot's the best.
I'll say this plug for Elliot Bird as well. We work with him in a different capacity for photography on various projects we're working on. And one thing I've learned about Elliot through the years, if Elliot says he's going to do it by a certain day or time, you can guarantee that you're going to get that. He is a machine.
And it's going to be the best product he could provide. Elliot's amazing.
I will say, for those that have enjoyed this program, I'm going to put in the show notes the feature video, which I think was edited by Anthony Armendariz.
Oh, yeah.
And that was phenomenal.
Oh, my God. He did such a good job. And he didn't want to do it. I don't know. There's some back end to that. Elliot and I had to convince Anthony. We were like, he's like, I don't know if I can do I don't know if I want to. I was like, just tell the story. You are very good at that. And he did a phenomenal job. It is so good. The 250 documentary is so good.
It's about 25 minutes, and I would say watch this video if you haven't seen it yet. It will really give so much context to what we've just heard from Doug. But Doug, you got to hit the road, my friend, over to XP.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, James.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Many thanks to our title sponsor, SSK Industries, home of Cypress USA, for supporting the 20-Minute Call. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you want to support the show further, support the companies that support this podcast. Until next time, blue skies.